He had the opening. Everyone in the room saw it. One more move would have ended it. Bruce Lee didn't take it. And that's when the fight changed. It was a controlled match. Not loud, not ceremonial. Just a square platform under hard white lights and a ring of observers standing close enough to hear fabric shift and feet slide. The opponent was disciplined. Compact guard, efficient footwork. He advanced in short bursts, closing distance carefully, testing reactions with sharp jabs and measured pressure. Bruce moved in smaller patterns, angled steps, subtle pivots, no wasted motion. His breathing stayed even. He wasn't chasing control. He was reading. The first exchanges were balanced. A jab slipped. A low kick checked. A brief clash of forearms. Neither man committed fully. The room stayed quiet, focused. Then the tempo shifted. The opponent increased pressure. He drove forward with a tighter combination, forcing Bruce closer to the boundary line. For a moment, it looked like momentum had tilted. The opponent sensed it too. His steps became firmer. His shoulders leaned slightly forward. He began to close the space with more confidence. Not reckless, just assertive. Each movement carried intent. Bruce did not rush to answer. He adjusted. A small pivot to the left, a half step back. His eyes never left the opponent's chest. Not the hands, not the face, the center. He watched breathing. He watched balance. He watched timing. The sound of shoes sliding on the mat grew sharper. Tap. Slide. Pause. The opponent threw a quick three-strike sequence, high, mid, then low. Bruce avoided the first by inches. The second brushed his guard. The third never landed clean because Bruce shifted his weight at the exact moment it arrived. It looked close, but it wasn't panic. His breathing stayed steady. Inhale, exhale, controlled, calm. The crowd leaned forward slightly, not cheering, just watching carefully. They could feel something building. Not chaos, pressure. The opponent tried to cut off the angle this time. Instead of chasing, he stepped diagonally, trying to trap Bruce near the edge. It was smart, calculated. Bruce's heel touched the boundary line, a small detail. But everyone saw it. There is a quiet tension when space disappears, when your back is near the edge, when options look limited. The opponent stepped in with more weight behind his movement. Not wild, still technical, but committed. He wanted to take control of center space. Bruce's posture stayed upright. No tightening of the jaw, no rush in his feet, just a slight narrowing of the eyes. He wasn't thinking about winning the exchange. He was measuring it. Another strike came forward faster this time. Bruce slipped to the outside. The opponent adjusted quickly and followed with a second motion. Their forearms collided lightly. A sharp sound echoed in the room. For a second, they were close, almost shoulder to shoulder. Then Bruce stepped out cleanly. No extra movement, no wasted energy. The opponent reset, but something had changed in the rhythm. The pressure was now constant. He was no longer testing. He was pushing. Bruce let him. That was the strange part. He did not respond with equal force. He did not try to overpower. He did not speed up. He stayed just slightly out of reach, close enough to invite engagement, far enough to stay safe. The opponent grew more confident with each forward step. His combinations came smoother now. He believed he was controlling the direction of the match. From the outside, it looked true. Bruce was near the boundary again. The lights above cast sharp shadows under their feet. The air felt heavier. No one spoke. Even small sounds felt louder: breathing, fabric, the scrape of skin against mat. Then it happened. The opponent launched another forward drive, a strong entry, clean structure, fast. But in the final motion, his balance shifted just a little too far ahead. His guard opened slightly. His weight settled too deeply into the front leg. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there, and Bruce saw it. The opening. Clear, direct, simple. Everyone in the room felt it. One precise movement could end the exchange. One clean strike. For a fraction of a second, time felt slower. This was the moment. And yet, he did not move. The opening was real. It wasn't imagined. It wasn't subtle. The opponent's weight had drifted too far forward. His front shoulder dipped. His guard separated just enough to create a clear line. Anyone who had trained even a little could see it. Bruce's lead foot shifted slightly inward, his hips aligned, his hand lifted halfway into position. Everything in his structure said the same thing. Now, the room tightened. No one shouted, but the silence changed. It became sharp, focused, expecting impact. The opponent realized it too. There is a strange feeling when you know you've made a mistake, but it hasn't been punished yet. A split second where you wait for contact. Your body braces. Your eyes widen just slightly. He was bracing. Bruce did not strike. He paused. Not frozen, not confused, just still. His hand lowered a fraction. His weight eased backward instead of forward. A small step. Calm, controlled. The opening closed. A soft wave of confusion moved through the observers. Why didn't he take it? The opponent recovered quickly. Guard up, spine straight, feet repositioned. He tried to act as if nothing had happened, but something had happened. He had felt exposed, and nothing came. That kind of moment doesn't disappear. It lingers. They circled again. The opponent re-engaged, but there was a slight difference now. His movements were sharper, faster, not smoother, faster. He stepped in with a heavy combination meant to reassert control. High strike, mid-level drive, forward pressure. Bruce didn't counter hard. He deflected and angled away. Again, no finishing attempt. The opponent pressed harder. You could see the shift in his breathing, slightly deeper inhales, slightly quicker exhales. His shoulders rose higher with each reset. He wanted to erase the memory of that opening. Another exchange. Quick contact. A narrow escape. For a second time, a small gap appeared during transition. Again, Bruce did not fully commit. This time, the crowd reacted audibly. A few whispers. Take it. Why is he waiting? From the outside, it began to look like hesitation. But hesitation usually comes with tension, with stiffness, with delay. Bruce showed none of that. His eyes remained steady, his posture upright, his feet relaxed. He was not missing the openings. He was choosing. The opponent's confidence started to twist into urgency. He stepped wider now when advancing. His strikes carried more weight, not wild, but heavier, more force behind each motion. He began trying to trap Bruce near the boundary again, this time with more commitment. He wasn't just testing space anymore. He was trying to close it decisively. Bruce allowed himself to drift near the edge once more. His heel almost touched the line again. The opponent saw this and surged. In his mind, the pattern was clear. Pressure was working. Forward movement was creating openings. Bruce was retreating, so he pushed harder. Another combination came forward. Faster than before. Slightly longer reach. Slightly deeper step. Bruce slipped the first strike cleanly. The second brushed past his shoulder. The third forced a brief clash of forearms. Close range. Very close. And again there it was. A direct line. Clear. Unprotected. Bruce's hand twitched upward, then lowered. Instead of striking, he rotated his torso just enough to disengage. A small pivot, a breath. Space restored. The opponent stepped back for half a second. Confusion flickered across his face. He had given two real chances. He had expected punishment. He received patience. And patience can feel more threatening than impact. Now the rhythm was uneven. The opponent no longer moved with the same measured cadence as before. There was a slight rush in his steps, a faint tension in his jaw. He wasn't fighting just Bruce anymore. He was fighting the moment he couldn't undo, and the room could feel it. The fight hadn't exploded. But something invisible had started to crack. The opening had been real. The strike had been available. But by not taking it, Bruce had changed the fight from physical to psychological, and the opponent didn't realize it yet. The opponent came forward again, but not the same way he had in the beginning. Earlier, his pressure was clean, controlled. Every step had purpose. Now there was something extra behind it. A need. He had felt the openings. He had seen the strike that didn't come twice. When you expect to be hit and you aren't, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels unfinished. It stays in your head. They circled. Bruce's feet stayed light. Small steps. Quiet adjustments. He wasn't retreating out of fear. He was shaping space. Always just outside full commitment range. The opponent snapped a quick jab. Bruce slipped it with a slight turn of the shoulder. A low kick followed. Bruce checked it calmly. No rush. The opponent increased speed again. A fast entry. 3 movements chained together. The third carried more force than needed. Bruce absorbed none of it directly. He angled away. The crowd's breathing felt louder now. From the outside, it started to look strange. Bruce had multiple chances earlier. Clean ones. Yet he kept choosing control over impact. A man near the edge of the platform leaned forward and whispered, "Finish it." Bruce didn't hear him. Or maybe he did. It didn't matter. His eyes were fixed on the opponent's center. The opponent stepped in again, trying to trap Bruce near the boundary line for the 3rd time. His strategy was clear now: cut off space, force engagement, close the match. He lunged, slightly deeper than before. Bruce gave him the angle, not fully escaping, not fully resisting, just enough to let the opponent think the pressure was working. And that was the shift. The opponent believed he was gaining ground. Belief changes movement. His strikes became longer. His feet traveled farther between steps. His recoveries took a fraction longer. Bruce still didn't strike hard. He touched, redirected, adjusted. Another exchange. Forearms clashed again. A quick, sharp sound in the quiet room. Their shoulders nearly brushed. This time, the opponent tried to follow immediately with a forward drive. He overcommitted by inches. Bruce stepped aside. Not a dramatic dodge, just a calm pivot. The opponent had to catch himself mid-motion to avoid stumbling. He recovered quickly, but it was visible. The first small crack. You could see it in his breathing now. Slightly heavier, slightly sharper. His exhale lingered longer. He pressed forward again, faster this time, almost trying to erase the previous misstep. Bruce did not speed up. That contrast became obvious. One man accelerating, one man steady. The opponent threw a tighter combination, attempting to force Bruce into a corner. The strikes were clean, but the rhythm was rushed. Bruce leaned just outside the final motion and let the force pass. Again, no counter. The hesitation from earlier had planted something in the opponent's mind. Why wasn't he finishing? Was he setting something up? That question started to change the opponent's posture. His shoulders lifted higher. His guard tightened too rigidly. When muscles tense too much, fluidity disappears. Bruce noticed. He stepped slightly closer now, just within reach. Not attacking, present. The opponent reacted quickly, almost reflexively, throwing a fast strike to assert control. It missed, because Bruce had already anticipated the urgency. He shifted back smoothly, letting the strike fall short. Now the opponent was chasing distance instead of controlling it. The room felt different. Earlier, the opponent looked composed and structured. Now he looked driven. There's a difference. Driven fighters try to impose. Structured fighters observe. Bruce continued observing. Another brief exchange. This time, the opponent attempted a strong forward step combined with a high strike. The motion had power, but his base wasn't fully set before impact. Bruce met it with minimal force, just enough to redirect and step inside. No heavy blow, just presence. The opponent's balance wavered again. Not enough to fall, just enough to show instability. Second crack. The crowd was no longer whispering about hesitation. They were watching something unravel. The opponent backed up half a step for the first time in the match. Only half, but it mattered. He tried to reset, rolled his shoulders, took a deeper breath. Then he charged again, this time with urgency. And urgency is heavier than pressure. Bruce let him come, still calm, still measured. The fight was no longer about landing the cleanest strike. It had become about who could hold control longer. And slowly, almost invisibly, control was slipping away from the opponent. Not because he was weaker, not because he lacked skill, but because he was trying too hard to correct a moment that had already passed. The opening Bruce refused to take was still echoing in the opponent's mind, and every attempt to erase it created another small mistake. The pace had changed. Not loudly, but completely. The opponent stepped in again, this time with more force than before. It wasn't reckless, but it was heavier. His front foot struck the mat harder. His shoulders drove forward with intention. He wanted to reclaim center space. He wanted to feel in control again. Bruce did not meet him head-on. He shifted slightly to the right. Not far, just enough to let the forward pressure extend. The opponent followed immediately, trying to trap him. A strong forward combination, high strike, mid-level drive, then a step-in attempt to close distance fully. Bruce absorbed none of it directly. He redirected with small motions of the forearm, subtle touches, no dramatic blocks. Then it happened. The opponent committed to a wider step than before. His rear foot dragged half an inch during transition. It was small, but small things matter. His weight traveled too far past his centerline. His hips rotated slightly ahead of his base. His guard, just for a breath, opened wider than it should have. Bruce saw it. This time he did not pause. He stepped in cleanly. Not with a wild swing, not with anger. A short, controlled strike to the body, direct, efficient, immediately followed by a subtle sweep, not aggressive, just timed. The opponent's structure collapsed inward. He didn't crash to the mat. He stumbled. One foot slipped backward to catch balance. His upper body leaned too far forward. His hand dropped briefly toward the floor to stabilize. It was enough. The room felt the shift instantly. Not because of impact, because of control. Bruce did not rush to follow with a dramatic finish. He stepped back half a pace, resetting the distance. The opponent stood upright again, but his posture had changed. Earlier, he looked composed. Now he looked unsettled. His breathing was heavier, his shoulders tighter, his eyes sharper, but not calmer. He stepped forward again, trying to prove that the stumble meant nothing. Bruce met him with positioning, not force. Each time the opponent advanced, he found himself slightly misaligned. His entries no longer landed cleanly. His combinations broke apart halfway through. Bruce's movements were still small. A pivot here, a shift there, a light intercept to disrupt timing. The opponent tried to speed up again. Speed without balance creates cracks. He threw another forward drive. Bruce angled away at the last second, forcing the opponent to overextend once more. A short touch to the shoulder redirected him offline. No heavy blow. But the pattern was clear now. The opponent was reacting. Bruce was deciding. Another exchange at close range. Forearms collided again. This time the opponent tried to push through physically, attempting to impose strength. Bruce yielded slightly, then turned. The opponent's weight carried past its ideal point. Bruce stepped behind his angle and placed another clean body strike, measured, controlled, undeniable. The opponent stepped back. For the first time, not half a step, a full one. The crowd didn't whisper anymore. They watched. The earlier confusion, why didn't he finish, had faded. Now the question was different. How did control change so quietly? The opponent attempted to recenter himself. He rolled his shoulders, took a deeper breath, tried to slow down, but urgency doesn't disappear immediately. He surged again, trying to force a strong exchange. Bruce did not escalate. He simply occupied the better position. He intercepted before full extension. He stepped offline before impact. He forced the opponent to reset again and again. Every time the opponent tried to regain dominance, he found himself one step late. Not because he lacked skill, but because he was no longer balanced inside. The initial opening, when Bruce had chosen not to strike, had planted tension. That tension had grown into urgency. Urgency had turned into overcommitment. Overcommitment had broken structure. Now the fight moved on Bruce's timing. Not loudly, not violently, but clearly. The opponent attempted one final strong entry during the round. A fast, committed forward push. Bruce slipped outside, placed a clean intercept to the midsection, and guided the opponent slightly off balance once more. No collapse. No dramatic ending. Just a clear difference in stability. The referee stepped closer as the round neared its end. The opponent stood upright, breathing harder than before. His stance was intact, but the fluid rhythm from the beginning of the match was gone. Bruce stood calm, balanced, unrushed. The shift was complete, not because of one powerful strike, but because the structure underneath the opponent's control had been slowly dismantled. And it began with a moment when Bruce chose not to finish. When the round ended, there was no explosion of sound, no dramatic finish, no raised voice, just a subtle change in the air. Both men stepped back to neutral positions. The opponent's chest rose and fell more noticeably now, not exhausted, just carrying more effort than before. His shoulders stayed slightly tense even while standing still. Bruce's breathing looked almost the same as it had at the beginning. Slow, even, unhurried. From the outside, someone might say the difference was small. There had been no knockout, no sudden collapse, no overwhelming exchange that forced an obvious conclusion. But the shift was undeniable. The opponent no longer controlled the pace. Earlier in the match, he dictated forward movement. He chose when to engage. He closed space confidently. Each step had intention. Now he hesitated, just a fraction. When he considered stepping in again, there was calculation behind it, not natural flow. He was measuring risk differently. The reason traced back to that earlier moment. The opening. The strike that didn't happen. When Bruce had the clear chance to finish and stepped back instead, something quiet entered the fight. Uncertainty. The opponent had expected pain, expected punishment, expected consequence. He had prepared for impact. Instead, he received patience. Patience is difficult to process in a fight. When you feel exposed and nothing follows, the mind starts asking questions. Was he testing me? Was that intentional? Is he waiting for something bigger? Those questions do not stay silent. They influence movement. They tighten muscles. They rush decisions. The opponent tried to remove that feeling by increasing pressure. He tried to prove control was still his. But each attempt to erase the moment created imbalance. Every heavier step pushed his weight too far. Every faster combination shortened his recovery. Every surge carried more urgency than structure. Bruce didn't defeat him with power. He let the opponent defeat his own rhythm. Restraint forced reaction. Reaction led to overextension. Overextension broke balance. And once balance is broken, even slightly, the fight changes shape. In the final exchange of the round, the opponent attempted one last committed entry. It was clean in form, but late in timing. Bruce stepped offline before full contact, placed a controlled intercept to the body, and redirected the forward drive just enough to show who held position. Not domination, clarity. When they separated, it was obvious. Bruce was deciding when engagement happened. The opponent was responding to it. The crowd felt it. No one shouted now. There was understanding. He could have ended it earlier. He chose not to. He didn't win by finishing the opening. He won by allowing the opponent to expose himself repeatedly. The first non-strike wasn't hesitation. It was information. It showed him how the opponent reacted to vulnerability. Once he understood that reaction, the outcome was steady, not explosive. Steady. The fight didn't end with a dramatic blow. It ended with a shift in control. Bruce stood relaxed, hands lowering naturally, eyes calm. The opponent stood upright, but thinking. The difference was not strength. It was composure. He didn't end the fight with force. He ended the other man's certainty. He didn't take the final strike. He removed the need for one.